You think in the land of the free and the home of the brave, the simple act of existing wouldn't be a death sentence. But for black women in America, it's a different story. It's a story soaked in blood, injustice, and systemic racism. Since 2015 now, at least 50 black women have been killed by police in the United States. Let that sink in a moment. 50 lives snuffed out by those sworn to protect and serve. 50 families left with to pick up the pieces. 50 more reasons to question if justice for all truly applies to us. Well, America, this shining beacon of freedom and opportunity, was built on the backs of the enslaved black people. Our ancestors were dragged here in chains, forced to build a country that now, centuries later, continues to devalue and discard black lives. It's a grim legacy that we're still grappling with, and nowhere is this more apparent than in the way black women are treated by law enforcement. Let's take a closer look at some of these women. Their names might sound familiar. It might not be as well known as others, but their stories are no less heartbreaking than the same. Tatiana Jefferson. In 2019, she was shot through a window in her own home by a Fort Worth police officer. She was playing video games with her nephew. Her crime, existing while being black. Breonna Taylor, 2020. This 26-year-old EMT was gunned down in her own home during a botched raid. The officers involved weren't there for her, but she paid with her life anyway. Poor Breonna was sleeping when the bullets tore through her body, dreams of a future snatched away in an instant. And let's not forget Miss Korryn Gaines, who in 2016 was shot in her own home during a standoff. Her 5-year-old son was also injured in the shooting. The violations weren't worth her life, but apparently her defiance was. Deborah Danner, the 66-year-old with mental health issues, was shot in her apartment in 2016. She was holding a bat, and instead of using non-lethal force or showing compassion, the officer chose to pull the trigger. And our latest victim, Miss Sonya Massey, who was also gunned down in her house. These are just a few names to a long list that grows with alarming regularity. Each case is a stark reminder in America that black women are often seen as threats rather than citizens. The systemic race system embedded in the fabric of this country ensures that justice remains elusive. Let's just face it. When was the last time you heard of a black officer killing a white citizen? Go ahead, I'll wait. Yeah, it's a rare occurrence, almost non-existent. And when it does happen, it's met with swift justice and widespread outrage. The disparity is glaring, and the scales of justice are perpetually tipped against us. And it's not just here. Globally, black people face racism. But America just perfected it. It's like we took the concept of racism and decided to make it an art form. The injustice, the inequality, the blatant disregard for black lives, it's all part of the American experience. It's woven into our history, our laws, and our police departments. Our suffering is not just an American issue, it's a global one. But it's in America where the hypocrisy is most glaring. This country prides itself off being the land of the free, yet for black people, freedom is a myth. We're free to live in fear, free to face discrimination. We're free to be killed by those who are supposed to protect us. The suffering doesn't end with the deaths. It ripples through the communities, through families. It leaves children without mothers, parents without daughters, friends without confidants. A psychological toll of this relentless assault on our existence is immeasurable. The constant fear, the anxiety, the anger, it just wears us down. We march, we protest, we scream until our voices are hoarse. But justice is slow. Justice is blind. And in many cases, justice never comes. The officers involved in these killings often walk away with little more than a slap on the wrist, if that. The system protects its own, leaving us to pick up the pieces. And still, we fight. We fight because we have to. We fight because the alternative is to let our stories be erased, our lives be deemed unworthy. We fight for those 50 women and the countless others who came before them. We fight for our children, so they don't have to grow up in a world that seems to be so cold and think of black people as less than a human. So when you hear the names of these women, remember their stories. Remember that behind each name is a life cut short, a family shattered, a community in mourning. Remember that their deaths are not isolated incidents, but parts of a larger, grim pattern of racial violence and systemic inequality. Remember that their lives mattered. And demand justice, not for them, but for all of us. Because until Black lives matter, I mean truly matter, there can be no justice, no peace, no freedom. But first, Black lives have to matter to Black people. We as a people and as a culture, we've fallen short and lost all thought of what our ancestors have brought before us. The love that they had, the compassion. We take all of it for granted. So I'm saying to Black people, become one. Treat your brothers and sisters as if you want to be treated. Because for others' lives to matter, all Black lives have to matter to Black people. Thank you for watching.